Hi, I just want to make a video about possible germ warfare around the time of the plague in London. I think the plague was in 1666 in London, and apparently out in the countryside, which I think is where it's supposed to have begun, um, there are stories that people were seen dressed all in black, including over their heads, with funny-looking faces on, masks on, that today we would recognize as gas masks or breathing apparatus, and long black robes, and using a machine that was like a stick with steam or smoke or spray coming out of the end, which they sprayed from side to side near small villages, within a mile or two of small villages, seen by the odd person here and there going about their business. Now, this is apparently where the legend of death came from. We didn't apparently have this legend before then of death in a long black robe swinging a scythe. Well, we have the scythe because it looks a bit like a spray coming out of the end of a long stick or something. But actually, according to the legends where this image of death came from, it was a spray of some kind, or smoke or something, some kind of thing that was coming out at the end of these long poles that these figures were swinging around in areas of low inhabitation, probably upwind of the villages, so that they would be, so that whatever was coming out of these contraptions would be carried downwind to the villages. Now, it's been speculated that it could have been actual germ warfare at that time. Now, to me, I'm wondering exactly why this would have been carried out. Could it have been carried out by aliens? Well, yes. Could it have been carried out by people? That's also a possibility. Now, what if you asked someone today to go back in time and do a lot of germ warfare somewhere? Why would this be being done? Would it be to generally reduce the population? Possibly. But if you wanted anyone to do it then, they would ask you, can you prove to me that I won't be wiped out as a result if I by killing off my ancestors in the past? Well, you would have to do this for people, otherwise they wouldn't want to go and do this work for you, or you wouldn't want to do it yourself. So they would have to know that their ancestors would not be those who would die. So who would be those who would die? Well, you could say they'd find everybody out. That would be rather a big task, but I suppose it's possible. Well, it would be anybody who isn't alive today, who wouldn't be alive in your time. Okay, possibly, and with computers you could do that. Yeah. Maybe even without, I don't know. But anyway, what if they knew they wouldn't die because they were targeting particular people? What if they were targeting particular people and they knew that they weren't amongst those people, so their ancestors would not have been, which is why, because due to the simple fact that they inherited their genes from their ancestors, so they know their ancestors, which genes, roughly speaking, they knew they're targeting particular genes that they know their ancestors wouldn't be carrying. So did they target people? If so, did they have a particular purpose in mind? Were they just reducing the population generally, or were they targeting particular people? Whom might they target? People on the so-called red list, freedom fighter types, individual personalities who are willing to stand up to authority, psychics who would know instinctively what was going on if something nefarious was happening in the world, good people who would, on principle, resist evil. Exactly whom did they target? Was it not just a depopulation measure? I mean, a depopulation measure is slightly doubtful, because by the time they had developed time travel and germ warfare, so they could target people with germs and not just kill indiscriminately, they would have had to have been fairly well advanced. So they would already have been quite a distance in the future and would already have quite a large population, and they still managed to get all that technology together. So it's not like they were overwhelmed and everybody was starving or anything. It's not like they were overwhelmed by numbers. So they seem to have had a specific agenda. They didn't want to just kill in their own time. For some reason, they wanted to eliminate particular groups of people so that in their own time, which is presumably now, there would be fewer of the people they didn't want. So whom did they get rid of? These are probably bad people, because if they were able to cope, if everybody wasn't starving to death, if they weren't overwhelmed, if they were able to cope, presumably they were okay. So they didn't really need to do what they were doing. It wasn't a population control measure. So they were just bad people. So whom do bad people get rid of? You know, whom do bad people indiscriminately kill? I mean, unnecessarily kill. You know, even when they're okay. Even when there's even when the bad people are okay and they're not facing any real threat. They get rid of people who are independent-minded, fair-minded, psychic, people who can basically tell what's going on in the world and if it's all right or not. And active types who might come up with a plan and do something about it. That's who they get rid of. So what I suggest is digging up the plague pits and looking at the genes of the victims and seeing whether or not they do differ in any way from the majority of genes of the present day. Some people may have survived still today, but are there more of a particular type of number of genes or some particular gene in the plague pit victims than there are in the modern day in proportion to the population, say? Were a particular group of people targeted? Are they the ones who died whilst others did not? If so, are any people remaining today who weren't killed, who were targeted? Who are these people? I bet they're the red listers, the freedom fighters, the independent thinkers, the people who actually care about right and wrong. I bet they are. And also recently in London, for example, to build Canary Wharf, I think it was, a big financial and rich district built in a former poor area of London. They had to dig up plague pits, and all over London they've been digging up plague pits recently. They haven't done that for a long time. I mean, they've deliberately left them for a long time, and suddenly they're digging up loads. Why suddenly dig up loads? Is it to contribute to the end times? Because they've been careful not to release the plague. That's why they haven't dug up in these areas where the bodies of the plague victims were buried. They're digging them all up now suddenly. Dug up nearly all of them. I think maybe they've all been dug up by now. Hopefully, some people think, to spread plague in the end times. I'm wondering if it's because they developed genetic technology which has made somebody wonder if a particular group of people were wiped out by the plague, and possibly why. So do they now know the answer? Do they know what was done in some other parallel universe, and what the effects are today? And what did they find out? I'd like to know. If nothing else, they did exhume bodies. What did they do with the bodies? Did they rebury them, or did they just cremate them, burn them all up? They probably cremated them and burned them all up after genetically testing them. Well, I want to know the results of the genetic testing. I bet they did some. We should find out. I want to know. And after that, I bet they cremated them. If they didn't, then let's genetically test them. If you know of anyone in some smaller town who was buried in a plague pit further out from London, why not get samples of them, of their DNA, and try it so we can try and find out, even if we don't, just get a tooth or something from each one and keep it till we can do something about it. You know, because I would like to know if anything was done by those strange figures in black. Did they target particular people? Thanks.